Well, there's no question that the Chinese Communist Party is one of the United States' greatest adversaries and competitors.
The FBI has called the CCPA a grave threat to the economic well-being and democratic values of the United States.
Now, an explosive new piece for the Daily Caller News Foundation titled Exclusive, Chinese Communist Party quietly operates shadow justice systems in U.S. cities. Investigative reporter Phil Lenczycki writes, located throughout California, the greater Washington, D.C. area, Hawaii, and New York, the network of more than a dozen nonprofits share information with Chinese law enforcement officials, and some also host unsanctioned courtrooms in the U.S., a months-long investigation has discovered. U.S. lawmakers and intelligence analysts say that China's underground courts could easily be weaponized to punish dissidents and expand communist influence abroad. Here to discuss the situation is Phil Lenczycki himself. Phil, thank you so much for joining Rising this morning.
Thanks for having me on.
So what is going on here? This sounds like an explosive allegation of Chinese communist sympathetic courts or influence where that is going on. Tell us more about this.
There's a range of different entities that we have identified, and they all have different relationships with Chinese law enforcement departments in China. And so teasing that out is a little bit complicated, but the big picture is this. At one level, there are Chinese civic associations that are meeting with officials from the Ministry of Public Security in China to discuss overseas policing efforts. At another level, there are individuals who are leaders within these Chinese civic associations in the United States who are themselves members of the aforementioned Ministry of Public Security. And then finally, there are individuals who are a part of these Chinese civic associations who have been appointed by either people's courts in China or the Supreme People's Procuratorate as hearing officers or overseas mediation officials to operate some type of overseas courts here in the United States. So that's the sort of breakdown into three parts about what we found.
Philip, this seems like it could have been written by Hollywood. I had no idea that this was going on, and I'm sure viewers didn't either. Could you give us a sense of the scope and scale of this? How widespread is it? What communities are you talking about? And how many people are we talking about who would be impacted?
Maybe your viewers are familiar with the case of America Changle Association, which is a Chinese civic association that had its headquarters in Manhattan. And they were found to be operating an overseas Chinese police station. Recently, one of their leaders, Chen Jinping, he pleaded guilty to his involvement in this operation. And so what we're looking at here is sort of an extension of that. In fact, three of the individuals involved in the court operations were themselves members of America Changle Association. So not only was that Manhattan headquarters home to an overseas police station connected to Changle District in Fuzhou, Fujian Province, but additionally, what we're reporting is that some of their leadership was also appointed to operate some type of overseas court.
And
so, please.
No, go ahead.
And so across the country, what we're seeing then is if we look at, for instance, California, we found that there were several similar operations. Two of those were in San Francisco, and they were connected with a procuratorate and a court in Guangdong province. There's another civic association closer to Los Angeles, and they were working with a court in Zhejiang province from Wenzhou. And they were appointed to open up an overseas mediation station, the court. So that's what we're seeing. The other affected states beyond New York and California were Hawaii and sort of the greater Washington area. So specifically Gaithersburg, Maryland of all places, was also home to one of these civic associations from which their officials were meeting with Ministry of Public Security officials.
what are the people who defend this kind of practice saying, well, why is this necessary? Why should U.S. nonprofits be involved in it whatsoever?
The Chinese government believes that it has a right and a responsibility to protect the legitimate rights of overseas Chinese. That's the language that they use. And when we are looking at this, they believe that they should be providing services for additional convenience to their overseas compatriots. And so they are saying that these courts, they're there to ostensibly provide services for some type of, Chinese driver's license renewal. This is what we actually saw the America Changla Association's police station purporting to be offering. And they're also, we found cases in California where they were involved allegedly in helping conduct some type of international divorce settlement or things of that nature.
Philip, when we think about a justice system, we think about it meeting justice as well, not necessarily those sort of social service descriptions that you just provided. Did any of your reporting uncover consequences or enforcement actions as part of this shadow system?
We didn't find that currently any of these locations had been involved in any type of criminal proceedings. But as with any type of case, there's going to be decisions rendered by the courts which are going to impact individuals. And so this sort of brings up the main concern, which is that folks who might find themselves brought in before one of these courts could be leveraged to work for Chinese government interests based on the fact that they wish for a verdict to be returned in their favor. So these are some of the concerns, and especially given that America Changla Association was operating this overseas police station, but just making the same type of claims that it was only providing mundane legal services like Chinese driver's license renewal. That really raises the specter that these overseas courts could also be involved in much more.
Phil, thank you so much for joining us to talk about this. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much for your time. Thank you.
That does it for us today on Rising. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're now available anywhere you can get your podcast fix. See you tomorrow.